Hey guys, Andy here from iPhone Dev Coach. I wanted to tell you a quick story about how this whole idea of becoming an iPhone app development coach started. I think at this point we've all heard the success stories about how much money developers and companies are making from iPhone apps. Some of these people are literally making hundreds of thousands of dollars in a few weeks immediately following when the app went up for sale. Now, I'm not telling you this for some sort of fake hype or shock value. It really is true. The iFart app alone made close to $1 million after it launched. And this app basically lets you push a button on your phone and make fart noises. I'm not kidding. So, now when I first decided that I wanted to get in on this game and start turning some of these ideas I had into apps, I went out and I got a couple of books, and I bookmarked some tutorial sites to try and teach myself how to develop and write code for the iPhone. Now, after a couple of weeks, I kind of resigned myself to the fact that learning how to do this stuff all by myself was not happening. Like, while all these people are out there making ridiculous money from app sales, I was sitting in my room trying to teach myself how to program. So, one afternoon, I gave a friend of mine a call because I had heard that he had launched a few apps with the iPhone, and I wanted to ask him if he could give me some lessons or something on how to program this stuff. And he told me something really surprising. He said that he himself knows a lot about programming for the web, but absolutely nothing about how to program for the iPhone. He actually was repeating back to me some of the same complaints about trying to learn it for himself, but deciding it was taking way too long to learn and he didn't have the time or the patience to really get good at this stuff. So at this point, I was getting a little confused because I know he had games that were for sale in Apple's App Store, like right now. So I was wondering like what he did. And then what he did was he dropped the bomb on me. Up until this point, I hadn't even considered this, and I felt kind of stupid for not coming up with it myself. And the bomb was that he had actually outsourced all the programming and design to companies overseas in Pakistan and India and China. So, now once he started telling me about all this stuff, I was hooked. I made him meet me up for coffee and tell me about how this process of outsourcing actually worked because I didn't know much about it. So long story short, after enough caffeine, he started to spill his guts about how all this stuff worked. And I was almost jumping out of my chair. I was so excited. The greatest part about it all was he was able to get this stuff done pretty inexpensively. And he was able to manage the whole process while he had a full-time job. So naturally, after this, being the overzealous guy that I am, I jumped right in and I started posting job recs on Odesk and Elance to try and find some cheap iPhone developers who I could pay to code up some of these ideas I had. And I gotta tell you that the process I went through trying to do this was anything but smooth. In fact, it turned into a personal nightmare along the way. It was so bad. So when I say to you that I have been there and back, I mean it. I'm not going to bore you with every little detail about it, but I can truthfully say that outsourcing is not the cakewalk my friend made it out to be. So while I was trying to do this stuff, I was wasting a lot of money. I wasted a ton of money on ineffective developers, and I wasted a lot of time on my apps getting rejected from the Apple submission process. I'm not sure if any of you knew this, but Apple has such a strict approval process that most apps get rejected their first time almost automatically. And even worse, if you or your developers don't know what you're doing, apps can get rejected 4, 5, even 6 times before they're approved. And each time you get rejected, we're talking like weeks in between the times where you got to fix problems and then resubmit it for approval, just waiting around for Apple to give you the thumbs up or the thumbs down. So, not to be too negative, we're getting to the good part here. I got to tell you, I've gone through this process enough times now where I have it down to a science. I don't waste money anymore at all on overinflated developer quotes. I don't waste time getting my app rejected 6 times and flushing months of my life down the toilet. Now, the thing is, once I realized I had this down to a science, I said to myself, I get a lot of the same questions and requests from people I meet all the time now. People really want to know what my strategy is to outsourcing iPhone development properly. The problem was that once people started telling me about their ideas, I could see that different problems might arise for each person along the way. There are basic principles, I think, that everyone should follow in terms of how to find the right outsourced developer for the job, how to create a timeline for development, and put together a good spec. But it was hard for me to explain to people that didn't have experience with this sort of process what might actually go wrong. There was no one-size-fits-all solution. So out of this whole dilemma, this idea was born for me to become the iPhone development coach and have people hire me to get them through this successfully. Since I've started this, along the way I did some back-of-the-envelope calculations for some of my clients, and I realized I actually have saved most of them thousands of dollars that would have been wasted, and months of time by assisting them with their app outsourcing from day one. It was a total win-win for both situations. So now here's the good stuff, here's the freebies. I'm going to share with you right now what is the number one worst and stupidest way that people get their apps rejected. This reason that people get rejected comes down to a single word, if you believe that. If this word appears in your app like it has for me and thousands of people, then it will get rejected. It's that simple. So what I want you to do is I want you to use the form on the bottom right, and I'm going to email it to you right now, no strings attached. Just this little tip alone, I'll tell you, could save you weeks of time in the approval process for any iPhone app you develop. So thanks for listening to me, guys, and hopefully we can talk soon and have some fun making some iPhone apps.